Welcome everybody, I am 6am Comics, and this is reviewing my 9-year-old's comics. We've reviewed a lot of characters by the mind of World Wide Comix CEO Mark Marianelli. Heroes like Black Widow, Super Nolan, the Human Spider, and the Scorpion, just to name a few. But even the most established publishers get that creative itch from time to time, and they can't resist the urge to create something new. Well, Nolan recently got that itch, and it manifested itself in the form of not one, but a plethora of new IPs.
What is a plethora?
We've actually reviewed two of them, Invisible Man and Foxboy. But those two are just the tip of the iceberg. Foxboy and Invisible Man struggled to find their legs, resulting in more low page count test comics. In the case of Invisible Man, Nolan couldn't find a viable way to mass market a hero that relied on the reader owning a spy pen. And as for Foxboy, it was an interesting concept, but Nolan struggled to identify with the character on a personal level. Other concepts included Blue Ghost, an unfinished comic named Hacker Apocalypse, and an untitled one-off simply referred to as Magic Shoes. A creative block and a creative itch at the same time. It was tearing him apart. That is until one fateful day at school, he was forced to write a short story for his English class. And in a moment of desperation, he poured his heart onto the page, expressing his desire for creative freedom and expression in the form of a brand new hero, Nolan and his amazing pencil sword. The design was nothing terribly unique, just a generic boy with a familiar letter on his chest. But this wasn't about flashy costumes and colorful villains. This hero was conceptual, a conduit for Nolan's personal struggles, a champion to break the chains of a creator's block. But this isn't reviewing my 9-year-old's school papers. We're here to review comic books. So what does this short story have to do with World Wide Comix? Well, Nolan's paper did exactly what it needed to do for him. It freed his mind. That very evening, he came home and created this 8-page comic, Nolan and his pencil sword. Let's check it out, shall we? Similar to last week's comic, Nolan and his pencil sword is also presented on 8.5 by 5.5 paper. Luckily, the pages have been handled with much more care. Well, mostly, as these pages were taken from a sketchbook with perforated edges. Being that this is a newer book, it should be expected that Nolan would have learned from a handful of his mistakes along the way. The cover art makes use of some gorgeous blues and purples, which really make our title hero pop on the page with his red and yellow color palette. Written and illustrated by Mark Marianelli. Well, obviously his big brother and former editor Milo wasn't involved, or he would have spelled his last name right. Details schmeetails, this is all about the art, people. The interiors are a standard black and white, and keeping in theme with the pencil sword, it's illustrated using only a pencil. So expect a grainy graphite finger when you're finished reading through this one. Speaking of the interior art, this is some of Nolan's cleanest line work to date. The imagery is clear, the lettering is big and legible, and the simplicity of the art lends itself to some very kinetic imagery. The lines themselves are bold and precise, and I'm personally impressed by the humorous use of onomatopoeias. That's such a fun word. This is only an 8-pager, so let's just pop this binder clip off and get into it. I'm guessing he's out of staples. Once upon a time, a really cool kid named Nolan fought bad guys. I always appreciate a good self-insert. Nice to know he keeps it humble with his own. Good lord, is that a tooth? This guy must have done something real bad. And one day, he went up to his treehouse. Probably hiding from the cops after that aggravated assault charge he clearly stirred up. Also, I've got some serious concerns about the structural integrity of a house built on top of the tree. This Nolan kid is clearly a reckless individual, but I respect his desire to live dangerously. Inside the treehouse, he flicks on a light switch and opens a mini fridge. What the heck is powering this tree? Thirsty after a long day of assault and battery, he's thirsty for a cola and grabs the last one in the fridge, unbeknownst to the fact that there is clearly a large pencil floating inside that bottle. He begins chugging the soft drink. As he glugs down the soda, something startles him. What the Sigma is that doing in there? A pencil begins to slide out of the opening of the bottle. A choking hazard for sure. Kids, please don't drink sodas with pencils in them. Shaka 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 grow! Catchy. As he shakes the bottle, the pencil slides out and immediately grows to sword-like proportions. Nolan catches it, but the weight of the giant pencil pulls him down and the pencil stabs through the floor of the treehouse. Man, that's sharp! Jeez, he almost swallowed that thing, remember? Meanwhile, a clearly ill-intentioned gentleman laughs diabolically and declares, "I shall kill the world!" Look, evil as this plan is, I admire people who set big goals for themselves. But then, a voice is heard off-panel. "Stop right there!" The unnamed villain looks up to see a giant pencil drawing a large cage above his head. Well, I wonder who that could be. The cage falls to the ground with a resounding clank. On the final page, we see the bad guy trapped within a hand-drawn cage. Aww! Nolan grins mischievously. The end. I have to hand it to the kid. Most children would take the premise of a magical pencil and go off the rails with it. But Nolan instead takes a fantastical plot device and keeps it grounded, simple, and still leaving just enough questions lingering to keep the reader invested for a second issue. Questions like, why was Nolan such a violent vigilante before the pencil encounter? Where did this magical pencil come from in the first place? Is he in any way associated with Super Nolan? Or does he simply wear the N on his chest as a homage to his favorite superhero, who happens to share the same name? What I find interesting is that our hero begins as an extremely aggressive crime fighter, not simply stopping bad people from doing bad things, but possibly beating them so badly that they may not be able to do any kind of thing, good or bad, ever again. I mean, look at this guy. It's almost more cruel that Nolan left him alive. However, after receiving a weapon that not only has magical abilities, but is also extremely sharp and dangerous without all the magic, he stops a villain whose goal is to literally kill the world with the most tame, non-violent use of his new toy. Just a cage. Actually, scratch that. Look at this final panel. Those eyes. Those cold,
black eyes.
He's got a very bad man trapped in a cage, but I don't see him rushing to a phone to call the police. Truth is, he may just be on the run from the police himself. This is some Dexter-level behavior. Come to think of it, where have we seen this sort of behavior before? My gosh, Invisible Man. Another hero who emerged from Nolan's creative block and exhibited some Dexter-like behaviors of his own. Wait a minute, Invisible Man. Who exactly was that man that he knocked unconscious? He looked so familiar. It's all so clear now. Whatever Nolan did to this villain shook him to his core. He finally escaped whatever nightmarish scenario took place inside Nolan's treehouse. And as he was fleeing for his life, he encountered a second sociopathic vigilante. This is why crime doesn't pay, kids. He should be counting his blessings that he ran into Invisible Man and not Foxboy. Oof. And there you have it, the dawn of a new hero in the worldwide universe. Now, will it be enough to reignite the creative fire in Nolan's soul? Only time will tell, but given the fact he's already cranked out 2 comics since his book's inception, I'd say it did the trick. As for my rating, I'm going to give it 100 pencil shavings. Now, on a side note, this weekend, I evidently hit a landmark for the channel. We hit 500 subs. So thank you everybody to subbing to this very goofy channel that I run. And as a way of saying thank you, how about next week we reviewed World Wide War? Because I've held off long enough. All right. Bye.